You had to. Here's the problem they all faced. Boring, boring, boring. I'm going crazy. Hurry up. I hate this. Nothing's happening. Boring, 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 but I'm rich. But I'm rich. Ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. I'm going to suggest something to you. Getting rich is boring. Write that down. Going broke is exciting. Getting rich should be boring. And for most people, the truth is, they are addicted to adrenaline. They're addicted to the rush. They want excitement. You don't put excitement into your money. Making money should be boring. And the reason is because you're removing all of the emotions. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, good. Tell me something you just learned. You guys been taking notes. Somebody tell me something that's either boy, oh boy, am I glad I was reminded of that, or something where you saw your own behavior, just something you learned. Hang on, they're bringing you a mic right here. What's your name?
Azita.
Azita. What's something you learned?
I play emotional. I take huge risks when we were losing, I was taking risks, huge risks.
Yes.
And betting that it would work out. And so what I learned is to take the emotion out, to have a system.
Good.
To be knowledgeable and be bored.
And be boring. Thank you. That's a great lesson.
Yes.
Give her a hand. Very nice. That's the lesson. That's the lesson I hoped you would get. I hoped you would get the lesson that, look, you have to have some rules. Write that down. If you try to invest, if you try to become wealthy and you don't have rules, then you are speculating. You are gambling. Your emotions are in play. Look, I don't know about you, but I have a worst enemy. You know what his name is? Keith. Keith is my worst enemy. That little sucker never sleeps. He is constantly rearing up, trying to screw me up. It happens over and over and over again. I have to have some rules that will protect me from me. Check it out. I don't know about you, but all my problems started out as a good idea. How about you? Is it true? I mean, who wakes up in the morning and says, okay, today's the day I'm going to go out and wreck my life? Nobody does that. We all go out every day we think we're doing the right thing, and all of our problems started out as a good idea. I have to have rules in place that protect Keith from Keith. Keith is my worst enemy. It's unbelievable. I'm going to be talking more about rules in a second. I'm also going to be talking about investing and investing mastery. That's kind of what my theme is for today. It's what Harv asked me to talk about. And in fact, on the flip side of the piece of paper that you guys have been playing this game on, by the way, give yourselves a hand for playing the game. Very good. On the flip side of that piece of paper is something that just recently came in the mail to us, to Sandy and I, my wife and business partner, Sandy. We have a significant amount of money that's being managed by other people. And once or twice a month, they send us a little write-up. And right before we came to over here to Las Vegas, in fact, I just flew in last night from London. I've been teaching in Europe for the last 2.5 weeks. And so last night we landed, and Harv called me in London a few days ago, and he said, Keith, I know that, you got a bunch of people that are going to be at extreme wealth, and could you bring along one of the deals that has recently been presented to you? And so I said, sure. And, so I brought this deal along, not for you to do it necessarily, but for you to look at it. And this is some of the kinds of things that we're seeing that are opportunities. Let me give you a summary. It looks like they got a patent. It looks like this particular motor that they have will increase the power of about 50%. It looks to me like it's environmentally very friendly. It's hydrogen and ethanol. It looks to me like there's less complications than there are with conventional kinds of engines. It's easy to repair, and their primary target market appears to be China and India, which are both very large, very emerging markets. So at the bottom of your piece of paper, just based on what you've read, if this is something that you would be interested in doing, just write down, and I'm going to suggest we just play with $1,000. You write down 0 as the amount that you'd be interested in investing, or you write down up to 1,000. So, and if you wanted to write down more than 1,000, that'd be fine too. But someplace on your piece of paper, just write down, based on what you know right now, kind of what would be your interest level in this deal. And then we'll talk about this whole subject of investing and come back to this deal in a minute. Is that good? Everybody written something down? Good. All right. Someplace between 0 and 1,000. If you're a high roller like these guys back here and want to bet, more, then you could do that. But 0 to 1,000. All right. I believe that one of the biggest problems that people have when it comes time to make decisions, particularly around the subject of money, is that they don't take time to think. I mean, what most people do when they think about thinking is that they yawn and get ready to take a nap, as opposed to really doing thinking. I was hired in the early 1970s by two guys who became my mentors, and when they hired me, what they said is, Keith, we promise you that over the next 2 years, we will teach you everything we know. These guys were very, very successful business people. And they hired me as their protege to learn and carry their ball. So the very first thing I said I wanted to do was learn. And then I started, after I learned and I practiced a little bit, then all of a sudden I had some competence. I had some competence and was able to actually start doing deals on my own. By 1980, 81, 82, I had made an enormous amount of money. I was very successful, literally had millions and millions. In 1982, I was 32. So for those of you doing the math, it's 2007, so I'm 57. So in 1982, I'd made an enormous amount of money. We were very successful, and I was buying a business. I was buying another company, and I was raising money for this deal. And who I was raising money from is an investment bank named Drexel Burnham. Now, Drexel Burnham was the king of investment banking in the 1980s, and kind of like Goldman Sachs is today. But back in the 80s, it was Drexel Burnham. And Drexel Burnham was the inventor of something called junk bonds. Junk bonds is debt that is very low quality debt, but it's how in the 1980s, T. Boone Pickens and Carl Icahn and all these, Ivan Boesky, were all busy buying companies, and they were the corporate raiders. Well, in the 1980s, I was buying a business. The business price was $140 million, and I went to Drexel Burnham and I said, could you guys provide the financing in order to allow me to buy this business? And Drexel Burnham said, yes, we would love to provide the financing, Keith. You got the track record, you got the experience, we'd love to help you raise this money. The deal is totally buttoned up. Everything is all ready. The paperwork has been prepared. We're within a matter of maybe a week of funding this deal and closing the transaction. And my guy in New York, whose name is Leon said, Keith, there's only one final hurdle. The hurdle is that you need to go and fly to Los Angeles and meet with Mike Milken. Now, Mike Milken in the 1980s was the father of junk bonds. He was like incredibly well known in the Wall Street financial world. He was extremely rich. His salary and his bonus from 1979 to 1985 averaged $1 billion a year. So he's very successful, very rich, and Leon says, Keith, you got to go have a meeting with Mike Milken before we can do this deal. And I said, all right, I'll go meet with Mike Milken. Where is he? And Leon said, well, he's in Los Angeles. And Keith, what you're going to do is you're going to fly to Los Angeles. They're going to show you into a little room. In this room, there's going to be a total of 7 chairs. There's going to be 5 of the Drexel people in this little conference room. There's going to be a chair for you, and right next to you, there's going to be an empty chair. And the meeting is going to get going, and Leon said, Keith, you're just to start making your pitch. You just go in and get going on this thing. Tell them why this is a good deal. And at some point into the meeting, the door is going to open, and in is going to walk a little bitty short guy with a bad toupee. That guy is Mike Milken. Mike's going to sit down next to you. Don't say a word. Don't stand up. Don't break stride. You just keep right on going. Don't say anything. Just keep on going. And then at some point, if Mike likes everything he hears, he's going to leave. He's not going to stay the whole time. Now, he said, Keith, you're going to get nervous if he stays too long. Because that's not good if he stays too long. It's going to be very short, in and out. Don't say anything to him. He doesn't like that. This is not about him. This is only about the deal. I said, no problem. I got it. So I fly to L.A. I get to the little conference room, 7 chairs. I'm in there, 5 of their people in there, empty chair right by me. The 5 people say, okay, let's get going. Man, I am rolling. I am smoking. I'm telling them why this is a good deal, about competition, about market value propositions, competitive advantage, management teams. I am cooking. The door opens. In walks this little bitty short guy with a bad toupee. He sits down right next to me. I don't break stride. I just keep on going. And I go for another 5 minutes, and the door opens again. They didn't tell me that was going to happen, so I stopped. I turned around, I looked at the door, this guy sticks his head in, I said, I'm sorry to interrupt. Mike, we have to have a decision on the takeover of Gulf Oil. I went, whoa, that's a big deal. Mike Milken, who's sitting right next to me, says to me and the rest of the room, he says, I'm sorry, give me 1 minute. Mike Milken opens his little day timer, turns a page, and says this: the next time I'm scheduled to think is from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. on Thursday morning. You will have an answer at 5 a.m. I went, whoa. These boys are playing at a whole different level. You know what I mean? First of all, they're scheduling time to think. Are you kidding me? I've never done that in my life. I'm a gunslinger. I'm a ready, fire, aim, like this woman said over here. That's kind of how I did it. And I said, whoa, here's a guy who's obviously very smart, very successful. He's made a ton of money, and he is scheduling time to think. Not only that, it's from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. So I sat there and I opened my little notebook and I said, note to self. Schedule time to think. Now, let me ask you a question. Has anybody in here besides me ever learned something and then forgot to use it? Yeah. That's what happened to me. So here I am. I buy this company. I mean, I'm hot. I'm on a roll. Everything is good. I start buying real estate. I'm loading up with debt. And pretty soon I got hundreds of millions of dollars of debt. The economy started turning. And the liquidity, kind of like it is today, got drained out of the market, only it was worse. And ultimately, I couldn't sell any of the assets that I had, and my assets kept going down in value, but my debt stayed right here. So for a while, I was like this, worth a ton. And then pretty soon, I mean, here's my debt, and here's my assets, and I'm going, boy, this is getting worse and worse and worse. It reminds me of W.C. Fields said one time, I sure hope I break even on this deal. I really need the money. That's the way I was feeling. I was just hoping I was going to break even on this thing. I spent 4 years of my life negotiating my way out of several $100 million of personal liability debt. I had a lot of cash, I had a lot of net worth, and I just started trading. For 4 years, I made no money. All I did is go to the office every day and call my lenders and say, okay, look, I'll give you back your property, I'll give you back the assets, and I'll give you a little bit of my cash. And I was successful. After 4 years, I got back to zero. My accountants came to me in 1990 and they said, Keith, congratulations on getting out of debt. I said, thank you very much. I'm even. I have no assets. I have no debt. I got zip, nada, nothing. I got nothing. But I'm very happy. I broke even. And my accountant said to me, Keith, the bad news is you have, when there was debt forgiveness, so if I owed a bank $10 million and I only gave them back $6 million, then I had $4 million of debt forgiveness, right? Does that make sense? They said, Keith, the bad news is that debt forgiveness is phantom income to you. I said, all right, so what? They said, well, you owe taxes on that phantom income. And I said, well, I didn't ever get the money. They said, we know. That's why it's called phantom. I said, well, how big is the problem? They said, $9 million. You owe the IRS $9 million. I said, well, I don't have that much anymore. I used to have it, but then I had to solve all these other problems. I said, I tell you what, let's do. Since it's phantom income, why don't I pay them with phantom cash? Fair is fair. They said, that ain't going to work. I said, good. What's my options? They said, well, your option is you can either pay it or you can file bankruptcy on February the 12th, 1991. Worst day of my life. February the 12th, 1991, I had to declare personal bankruptcy. And I had pissed away an enormous fortune. And the reason that happened is largely because I had learned a skill in 1982 that I forgot to use. And it was the skill of thinking. I'm going to suggest something to you, is that when you learn something and you practice and you get competent at it, what that usually leads to is arrogance. That's what it usually leads to. I mean, the problem with success is that success breeds complacency. Success breeds arrogance. And I see it all the time in the teaching that I do with entrepreneurs and people who want to be entrepreneurs. I mean, people who get their first bite at the apple and start getting some success all of a sudden start getting cocky. And that's what happened to me. I actually I told somebody one time at the height of my wealth, I said, and my wealth was real. I mean, I had a lot of cash. It wasn't just on paper. I told somebody one time that I was kind of like Halley's Comet. You know, a guy like me only comes around about once every 70 or 80 years or so. I mean, that's the height of arrogance. But that's where I was. And so I started a sabbatical. And this sabbatical started in 1991. I didn't know how long it was going to last. It ultimately lasted 18 months. There's a reason I'm telling you this story. The sabbatical lasted 18 months. During the sabbatical, I said, my goal cannot be to get rich. I'm broke. I'm broken. There's a part of Keith who is broken because I'd spent my entire life up until then going for success, and it wasn't working. My marriage wasn't working. I was a sorry dad. I was a sorry husband. I was bankrupt. I had no money. And I said, I gotta work on Keith. That's the primary thing that needs to happen. I grew a ponytail. I got my ear pierced. I studied the world's religions. I read 180 books, theology, philosophy, all the ologies, psychology. And the way I describe this time is it's like being a basketball player and it's halftime. And I'm one of the players. And the buzzer goes off, and as I'm trotting off the court to go into the locker room, I turn around and look at the scoreboard, and the scoreboard says the score is 87-3. The other guy is winning. So I sat in the locker room in my halftime and asked myself the question, how do I win this game? How do I win this game? How do I win this game? I was stuck. Turns out that's a horrible question. It wasn't until I changed the question from how do I win this game to how am I going to play? It's not about winning the game. It's about how are you going to play. I changed the question and very quickly was able to emerge from this sabbatical that I was in. The sabbatical lasted 18 months. Within 3 years after I left my sabbatical, I had recreated my entire net worth. The entire thing. I'd made all the money back. Now the question is, how'd that happen? I'll guarantee it happened because I had skills and tools. If you don't have skills and tools, you can't do it the first time unless you get lucky and rely on hopium. Do you know what hopium is? That's what most people are busy relying on, hopium. I hope it'll work. And I went bankrupt because I took my eye off the ball, got cocky and arrogant. I didn't think it could happen to me. During the sabbatical, what I had to do is make a decision, and the decision that I made was a decision not to pursue success, but instead to pursue mastery. That's an entirely different ball game. Mastery is a different ball game from success. And really that's all my teaching. If you took all my teaching and put it on a bumper sticker, that would be what my teaching is about. It's around the subject of mastery. I'm going to talk more about that in a little while. The critical part of this story is the turning points of the story. It's the learn, practice, competence. This one fouled me up. I got cocky. I then had to make a decision. That's what happened in the sabbatical. And ultimately what I concluded was, in order for me to create the life I want, what I need to be dedicated to is not success. What I need to be dedicated to for my life is mastery. Mastery to me simply means being the best me that I can. Write that down. Mastery means being the best me that I possibly can. The truth of the matter is, when I die, I have no interest in somebody standing over my grave delivering a eulogy to say, here lies Keith, he was super rich. That's not the difference. What I have an interest in is saying, here lies Keith. He planted a stake. He gave it everything he got. He made a difference. That's a whole different ball game. That's what mastery is about. I believe mastery is what you learn after you think you know it all. Mastery is what you learn after you think you know it all. I heard a saying one time that really sums up mastery to me. It says this: there is nothing noble in being superior to someone else. The only true nobility is being superior to your former self. There's nothing noble in being superior to someone else. This is not a race. And for sure, it's not something I'm going to win. There's nothing noble in being superior to someone else. The only true nobility is being superior to your former self. It's very powerful. What if the level you decided to play was at the level of, how do I create the best me? That's a whole different ballgame. So, critical thinking time. I learned the lesson. I now take very regular breaks to do thinking. But I think one of the reasons people don't get rich is because they don't ever bother to think. If you're going to think, I have over 450 questions that I have developed that I use when I'm about to think about something. If I'm about to think about buying a business or starting a business or growing a business, or if one of my businesses isn't as big as I want it to be, I know how to do that. And so I just begin asking myself these questions that I've developed, and that's what critical thinking time is. Critical thinking time is really asking yourself questions. I think the second part that goes along with this, and they'll show it up here in a second so you can take notes, critical thinking is not only about thinking time, it's also about clarity of the problem. Clarity on the problem. What is the problem? Here's the way that looks for me. Can y'all see this okay? Are they getting it up there? Okay, good. All of us have an is line in our lives. There's something that is. And I think one of the problems that people have is they rarely tell the truth about what is in their lives. People don't tell the truth. I mean, think about it. When's the last time you truly told yourself the truth about anything? Not only that, we don't even have people around us to tell us the truth. You know how I know that's true? Is because right now, every single person in this room can think of a friend or a family member who's in the process of screwing up. I mean, not a little, big. You're watching them screw up right now, and you're not saying anything. You're keeping the peace. You don't want to screw up this year's Thanksgiving. So let's say nothing. People don't tell themselves the truth. People don't surround themselves with people that will tell them the truth. People don't have someone around them that watches them swing. I think one of the great things about being in a partnership, it's a partnership that I have with my wife, Sandy. I mean, it's a partnership not only in relationship, it's a partnership also in our life, in our business. There is no separation. I mean, it's work and personal and everything is kind of in one big blob. But we've given ourselves permission to tell each other the truth. That's extraordinarily powerful. Without somebody else telling me what they see, I will be blind. It's called a blind spot. You have them, I have them. That's why Tiger Woods has 6 coaches. The reason Tiger has 6 coaches is because he can't see himself swing. You can't see yourself swing. And so what we tend to do is keep doing the same thing over and over again, and we don't tell ourselves the truth. Is there anybody in here who really and truly believes that they have been consistently telling themselves the truth? I mean, really? We don't. We don't tell ourselves the truth. I mean, we don't put on a seatbelt. We don't eat right. We don't exercise. We somehow are relying on hopium and luck in order to become wealthy. We think that we can become wealthy without learning critical skills and tools. Have we lost our mind? We think we can become wealthy by changing our mind. Michael Dell did not get rich by changing his thinking. That's not how he did it. It's not how Warren Buffett did it. Is it important that you have good psychology? Of course. But if that's all you do and you expect to get rich off of that, you just look at the most successful people on the planet and ask yourself the question, how did they do this? Is it because they sat down and read a book and changed their thinking, or is it because Their psychology was good, but what's the core reason they got rich? It isn't because they read a book. It isn't because they took a seminar. It's because they got off their big fat butts and went out there and learned critical skills and tools, and then practiced and corrected and practiced and corrected and practiced and corrected until they became a master. That's how they did it. Name one person who's one of the 10 wealthiest people on the planet who got there by doing the least, who got there by cutting in line, who got there by relying only on their natural talents. Name one. Name one person who's the best in the world at anything. I don't care what it is. Riding a bicycle. There's somebody out there who's the best in the world at it. Making money, investments. There's somebody out there that's the best in the world in it. Building computers. There's somebody out there that's the best in the world at it. Whatever business you happen to be in, there's somebody out there who's the best in the world at it. Name one person who's the best in the world, who got there by doing the least, who got there by cutting in line, who got there without learning critical skills and tools, who got there without being an apprentice. I just said something very important. Very important. Every single master on the planet, I don't care if you're talking about Tiger Woods, if you're talking about Warren Buffett, if you're talking about Vladimir Horowitz, who's one of the great pianists of all time, you could be talking about Michelangelo. Every single master at one time was an apprentice. Why were they an apprentice? So that they could learn what doesn't work. Holy cow, if you have to go out and remake every single mistake that Michelangelo made, or that Lance Armstrong made, or that Warren Buffett made, the reason you study with masters is so that you don't have to repeat all the mistakes, and you can find the things that do work and then stand on their shoulders. You have to be an apprentice. And most people don't want to be an apprentice anymore. Most people, the concept of being an apprentice has totally been lost. You go back 100 years, and if you found a master cobbler or a master craftsman, at one time they were an apprentice. And once they become a master, they have apprentices working under them. We've lost that concept. I was recently giving a speech to a bunch of MBAs. And somebody in the audience raised their hand. These are freshly minted new MBAs. Somebody raised their hand and said, "Keith, who do you think is the best person we could go to work for?" And I looked at them and I said, "Well, I mean, the person you should go to work for is the person you admire the most." And about 2 weeks later, I received a call from the dean of the MBA program. And the dean said, "What in the world did you tell all those people?" I said, "Well, I told them, they should go to work for the person they admire the most." He said, "I know, they're all going into business for themselves." You got to tell the truth about what is. If you don't have skills and tools, you can't be hacked off that you're not accelerating your pace to what you want. So telling the truth about what is. So we all have an is line. We also all have an ought line. An ought line. Is and ought. Ought is the way we would like for it to be. Is the way it is. What's the difference between is and ought? What's the difference? What do we call that? Yeah, we call that the problem. The difference between what is and what ought is what we identify as the problem, right? Hello? Yes, that's the way we do it. So what I want you to do on your piece of paper right now, nobody's going to look at it. Nobody's ever going to see it. I'm not going to call on you. You're not going to have to turn around and share with your neighbor. So here's an opportunity to tell the truth. What I want you to do is write down on your piece of paper one of your top 3 problems. Now watch, here's how you do it. Here's what you do. Watch me. You get your pen and you cover it up so nobody can see it. And you write really, really, really small so nobody can see it. But you're not going to have to think about this. Everybody in here knows what one of their top 3 problems is. 10 seconds. Write down one of your top 3 problems. 10 seconds. You already know what it is. You don't need to think about it. Good. You got your top problem down? Everybody got it? Anybody sitting there going, I don't have any problems? Everybody's got problems. Everybody's written one down, right? Let me ask you a question. Is what you just wrote down really the problem? No, it's not. I guarantee you what you just wrote down is not the problem. What you just wrote down is the symptom. But you did not write down the problem. People are unaware of what their problems are. That's part of this is. You got to get clarity on what the problem really is. Most people are trying to solve the problem that isn't. If you wrote down that I don't have enough money, if you wrote down my health, if you wrote down my relationship, I don't care what you wrote down. That is not the problem. If you wrote down I don't have enough self-discipline, that is not the problem. The only people fooling around with self-discipline and self-motivation are the people who are doing the best they can. There's a reason why we don't have what we want in our lives. The reason is because we're all busy doing the best we can. When's the last time you got up in the morning and said, okay, today I'm going to do the third best I can all day long? We don't do that. All day long, we're doing the best we can. You got up, and for the last umpty-ump years, you've been doing the best you can, and here's what you got right here. It's your life. It's not that there's anything wrong with it, but all of us would like to have more in our lives. And one of the things that's holding us back is this issue of doing the best we can. And the people who are fooling around with self-discipline and self-motivation are people who are doing the best they can, as opposed to masters who don't do the best they can. Never have, never will. Masters do whatever it takes. And that is an entirely different ball game. That's a whole different ball game. I mean, I want you to think about it. If they brought in a whole table full of crack cocaine and put it right here, 100 kilos of crack cocaine, put it on this table and say, Keith, you can use this crack cocaine, you can sell this crack cocaine, you can have a party with this crack cocaine, nobody will ever know. I'm not going to sit here and go, oh my God, crack cocaine. How am I going to keep myself from taking a toot? It ain't going to happen. Crack cocaine is a non-event. I don't need any self-discipline. I don't need any self-motivation to take that crack cocaine, dump it in the toilet, presto, bingo, I'm done. I'm not doing the best I can with crack cocaine. That is non-negotiable. Write this down. The quality of your life has nothing whatsoever to do with your standards. The quality of your life has nothing whatsoever